Hi, good morning, everyone. Welcome to this week's weekly live immigration attorney chat here at Immigration for Couples. I'm attorney Megan Pastrana. It's great to be with all of you here today. And I see we have a lot of questions in the queue. All right. And actually, I don't know, my computer keeps giving me all kinds of notices here. All right. So, and it looks like, yes, we are live. I'm streaming this live on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, and Instagram. And for those of you who are new, if this is your first live event, welcome. I'm super excited to have you here. A little bit about Immigration for Couples. Our firm is dedicated exclusively to helping couples across the nation and across the world and navigating the U.S. immigration process. And we do understand, I've gone through the process personally with my husband, and a lot of our team members have actually gone through their own personal immigration journey. And so we completely understand that the process can feel very overwhelming. It's like a labyrinth and it can be very stressful. And we understand that it's oftentimes when you're looking online, there's a lot of conflicting information. And so we created a free resource center at immigrationforcouples.com. I'll go ahead and I will throw that in the banner there below. And Ria will also put that in the chat in the comments. So Ria is part of our team, and so she's here moderating today. But check out that free resource center. Whether you're just starting out or in the middle of your immigration journey, there's all kinds of resources, including a webinar that I created where I talk about the 4 different options that are available to couples, how to prove your relationship. And there's also free downloadable charts and a relationship evidence guide. So all the essentials for your immigration journey. All right. And then, of course, we host these live events on Tuesdays at 11 a.m. Eastern time, and I answer your questions live. And so I always like to start by asking, where are you at in the world? And where are you at in your immigration journey? And how are you doing? How are you feeling? All right. So Ginger, lovely to see you as always. I know you're in the UK, so good morning to you as well. Hopefully everything's going well with your journey. I know that you had let us know previously that you'd filed, and so you're one day closer. So great to have you back. Betty, good morning to you too. You're in Canada and you're 6 months, 2 weeks in on your journey. Awesome. Okay. So keep those coming. Maria, oh, it's so great to have you back. You're one of our regulars, so it's always good to see you. Thanks for being here. Lisa, good morning. Yay. Phil and Anne in Thailand. Yes, you're documentarily qualified with the National Visa Center and waiting for your interview. Yay. Super exciting. That's an awesome place to be. All right, an interview should be right around the corner. All right, so we can go ahead and dive into the questions we have here today. And Ria, let me make sure our private chat is going. Please let me know, Ria, if anybody on Instagram, since for some reason I can see it's connected, but I can't see questions. If there's anybody who does have any questions, throw those in the comments for me, and I will get to those as well. All right. So this is our first question here today. So you were married overseas and you're still there due to family circumstances. Your wife is pregnant and she is about to have your baby soon. I don't know if it's a first child. I thought I read that, and you haven't filed anything yet. All right. Well, congratulations. That's exciting. Yeah, lots of big changes. And let's see. And you say you're still with her outside of the U.S. Should I file now before I go back to the U.S.? Are there any changes under the Trump's new immigration law which will affect our case negatively? All right. So yeah, I mean, if your goal is to be together in the United States as soon as possible, that first step is going to be filing an application. So I don't know the specifics of your relationship or, immigration history and all of those details. So that would come first. You would definitely want to make sure you are picking the appropriate path, making sure that you're eligible, that you meet all of the requirements, and then getting the application filed as soon as possible, so you can be in that line and be one day closer to being together. So it's really important to understand. I know there's a lot of fear and uncertainty, the changes that are happening with the current administration. And it's important to understand that a president doesn't and cannot change laws. Can a president implement new policies? Yes, but the laws that are written in the Immigration and Nationality Act, so that's the big book. I have I have a whole set of them over here on my bookshelf. You can't see it, but the Immigration and Nationality Act, all of those laws, those are written laws that outline the requirements, the eligibility requirements for the spouse visa, for the fiance visa, for adjustment of status. Those laws cannot be changed by a president. Can the surrounding policies, and the policies, by that I mean like the forms, there have definitely been changes in the immigration form. Some of the questions have been altered. I think some of the changes came directly from USCIS because they wanted efficiency. Others come from the administration trying to make the process have more hoops or more hurdles. And so to say that the changes would negatively impact your case, again, I don't know all the specifics of your case, but what I've spoken about on previous lives and with the couples that I represent is that we do anticipate, and we've already seen changes in immigration policies. So having mandatory interviews, for example, for all marriage-based adjustment of status cases happening in the US. More thorough vetting procedures, meaning they're wanting to really look and scrutinize relationships more closely. Would I say that it would negatively impact your case? Again, you definitely, need to speak with an immigration attorney. I can't say anything specifically about your case, but you will likely be facing longer wait times and increased scrutiny. But it doesn't mean that, you can never be approved. All right. So I hope that oh yeah. And you had other parts. You have an age gap and you're wanting to know if you should, file with a law firm or what my recommendations are. So my recommendations definitely, if you have red flags, working with an experienced immigration attorney to ensure that you are mitigating any of those red flags and the risks and setting yourself up for success definitely is definitely recommended. All right. And let's see here. Who is next in our queue? Ginger, I think you were just saying good morning, but I don't know if you have any questions. So, all right, Damien. So it's been 3 months since your biometrics appointment for your work permit. You filed your adjustment of status concurrently. Is this normal? And for your I-485 in the US, I haven't gotten an RFE in 4 months. Okay. So for work permits on the basis of adjustment of status, so that's the category that you are listing for your work permit, those are taking about 4 to 6 months. We've definitely had clients that have received their work permits in 2 months, and then some it takes a little more than 6. Immigration wait times are just that way. They're just fluid and can be different for everyone. And 4 to 6 months is pretty standard for work permits. And then for the I-485 application, it's important to understand that that application will be adjudicated, or in other words, decided in the state where you are living. So each jurisdiction or each state that is going to be reviewing that adjustment of status application has different wait times. For example, our clients in California, they tend to get interviews much faster than our clients, for example, in Indiana. I'm just throwing those two out there, or in Illinois, the cases that are processing through Chicago. Those typically take a year. In California, we've been seeing it take about 6 months, but of course, wait times really vary. So it's normal that you haven't, received a decision and it's been 4 months. I don't know where you're living, but wait times for the adjustment of status on average are about a year. Is it good that you haven't received a request for evidence? I mean, yeah, that's good. I mean, sometimes a request for evidence can be a part of the process, but really what's going to be happening next is an interview. So that's one of the changes that we are seeing with adjustment of status, marriage-based cases. Everyone is being scheduled for an interview, no exceptions. So we do anticipate that will increase the amount of wait that couples have to go through to receive a decision. So yes, it's good, that you don't have any kind of request for evidence and that the case is pending, and it is normal to take a while. It's a long wait. So, but best of luck to you, and that's good that you had your biometrics done. All right. Let's see who's next here. I was just kind of skimming all of the questions. Yeah, and then so Betty, you had said 6 months and 2 weeks in on I guess filing your fiance visa. So congratulations, that's exciting. Hopefully you are getting closer. Where am I located? Well, I live in Indiana and Florida. I am back and forth, but our team is literally all over the country, and we represent clients all over the country and world. So immigration is a federal practice. So I travel all over New York, California, Texas, represent clients everywhere. But I have 2 homes and back and forth. So yeah, and I know you're in Canada, right? So okay. So I like your I like your name, your title, trying to figure it out. That's very clever, especially with it sounds like your question here. You have to withdraw your fiance visa petition. B, also, do I have to wait 2 years before trying another petition? If so, from what date? I'm really sorry to hear that. I know that's not a decision that's taken lightly when you decide to withdraw a fiance visa application. And in general, it's you want to be very strategic with how you do that, because you definitely want to make sure the immigration file and your history is clean in case, in the future you both would decide to file the application again. So it really depends on the reasons. Typically, less is more. I don't know the specifics of your situation, so I do want to be clear that I can't give you legal advice for how to respond to this. But in general, something short, to the point, honest, clear is ideal. And in terms of having to wait 2 years, no, there's no requirement necessarily that you wait 2 years. If you've had other fiance visa cases that have been approved and gone through the process, or you've petitioned for others, sometimes depending on when those petitions were filed, the fiance visa does have a multi-filer requirement, and that you have to sometimes seek a waiver depending on timing. But there's not necessarily a rule that you have to wait, 2 years before filing again. But it definitely, when you do file a future application, definitely that's going to come up, and they will be asking more details about the why. And if you're filing another application, why is this different? Why will this work? So it's possible. It's definitely possible. We've helped individuals in that situation. And if you'd like to talk about it in private, I can definitely do that. You can schedule an appointment on our website, Immigration for Couples, or you can call the office and Ria can get you scheduled with me. But that would be my advice generally, right? If you're needing to withdraw. So I hope that that's helpful. And again, I know that's not a decision you took lightly. Okay, let's see. I'll make sure I'm not skipping anybody. Hopefully not. Okay, good. Okay. So, and Maria, yeah, happy June to you as well. Happy Pride Month, everyone. My team and I have a free resource for our LGBTQ plus couples for June, in celebration of Pride Month. I was going to mention that at the beginning. And so you saying June, that triggered my memory. And you're waiting on your K-1 visa. And yes, I had pulled this up earlier. So that's very exciting. Okay. Yes. So if you need a I-601 waiver, a provisional waiver, can you keep me in the U.S.? Can you keep me in the U.S. while the process plays out? No criminal history or contact with ICE, 20 plus years in the U.S., married to a U.S. citizen. So the provisional waiver process, the I-601A, is a process by which you ask for forgiveness for time in the U.S. without documents. You have to legally, part of that requirement in filing the waivers, you have to legally be physically present in the U.S. from the date of filing that application through adjudication, through the approval. But after the waiver is approved, you do have to depart the U.S. and go to your consular interview abroad. That's required when the I-601A, the provisional waiver option, was released. This is the process. You have to leave. You have to depart the country and go to the U.S. embassy or consulate in your country of citizenship or origin or birth for that interview. It depends on the country where you will have your interview. Most of our clients are typically gone anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks. It really just depends. You have to leave the country. You do a medical exam, fingerprints, and then you have an interview. For our clients who are interviewing, for example, in Ciudad Juarez in Mexico, that interview is 2 days. You have the first day you do document drop off. The second day is the interview with questions. And then after that, it does take about 5 to 10 days for the visa to be printed. But you do legally have to depart the United States for the provisional waiver process. And I'm happy to speak with you about that in private as well. Sometimes, of course, I'm always looking when I'm meeting with clients and looking at strategy. I look at options to complete the process without my couples having to leave. But if someone needs a provisional waiver, that's just part of the process. But I'm happy to speak with you in private as well. I know it's scary to leave the country, and I want to make one more comment on your question. I know that it's scary to leave the country, going through the waiver process, getting the forgiveness, and I know there's horror stories of people who go to their interviews and get stuck and can't come back. And I've actually met with people in that situation where they didn't understand the eligibility requirements or had someone representing them that maybe was an attorney or wasn't an experienced immigration attorney and didn't understand fully the laws. And then, the person goes and they weren't eligible and there are other steps that have to be taken. I've never had that happen to a client. Why? Because we're very, very thorough in our overview of your case, of your situation, of case strategy. We leave no stone unturned, and we ensure that you're in a position of safety and minimal risk before departing. So I wanted to say that too, because I know for a lot of people, the provisional waiver feels intimidating, knowing you have to leave. But we will take care of you and make sure that you understand, and we will research and we will look at your situation and make sure it's safe. So I would be remiss if I didn't mention that part as well. All right. Just wanted to scroll down. Okay, good. I'm glad that was helpful to you. Again, I know I regret to hear that that's your situation, but yeah, less is more. So I'm glad that was helpful. All right. Going back here to get I have so many questions because they're coming from all different places. So it just takes me just a second to get my bearings straight and get back to where I was. All right. So you're in Chicago. Your fiance is Moroccan. Your I-129F was approved. Yay! Congratulations. We're all celebrating you. That's so exciting. We have individuals who have filed their cases, individuals who are documentarily qualified and approved. So very exciting. Congratulations. Can I comment on the current status of NVC transfers? And things have slowed down. Yes, I can comment on NVC case transfers. So the I-129F petition, after it's approved, has to be forwarded to the National Visa Center. And the National Visa Center is in charge of assigning a case number and then really getting that file shipped to the U.S. Embassy or consulate where that interview will occur. If you read the really teeny tiny letters that are on that receipt notice, you'll see it says, if you haven't heard from the NVC in 30 days, you can reach out to them. So we always do that here at our firm for our couples. The reality is that it actually takes 60 days, typically at least 60 days for the NVC to assign a case number, and then at least another month or two for the file to be transferred to the embassy or consular post. It really depends. For our clients, for example, who are consular processing through Mexico, that typically takes longer to transfer, even though the embassy is closer. And then for our clients in London, or in the United Kingdom rather, who are consular processing in London, typically that transfer is a little faster. Why have things slowed? Well, immigration every year seems to go a little bit slower on everything, with the exception of the I-129F. That seems to always be all over the board. Work permits to wait times go up and down. But even before this year, last year, fiance visas last spring, once our clients were getting approved, the cases were being transferred really quickly, really in under 60 days. NVC, interview, all of that was great. And then all of a sudden last fall, things just really slowed down, and it was taking the NVC longer and the embassies longer. The reason why, well, it's a lot of reasons. I know some of it is staffing issues and not having enough personnel. Other reasons is that there are certain times of year where focus shifts to processing student visas before the fall semester starts, or employment type visas for temporary employment. And then that can cause other cases to be shuffled a bit. But it's really overall systemic issues with immigration, efficiency, lack of organization, the lack of personnel. It doesn't, knowing the reasons why, I don't know if that ever makes us feel better, but it is taking about 3 to 4 months. And the best thing you can do is one, celebrate that your fiance visa, or rather the petition, was approved. And then just keep an eye on the National Visa Center and reach out to them and keep tabs on your case. So hopefully you'll be able to get an interview soon. Congratulations. All right. So it says your kiddos just received their green cards. They came months ago. How can I get their citizenship soon? I have my citizenship. Well, it depends on the ages of your children when you receive citizenship. A lot of different things. And if they're, biological children, adopted children, stepchildren, as to whether or not they'll be eligible for citizenship. So citizenship rules are very complex. Typically for children who have a parent who naturalized or became a U.S. citizen before the child's 18th birthday, typically there's a way to apply for citizenship. Not always, because there are, like I said, there are certain rules about, relationship with the child, age of the child, and United States. So that would be something that you could, on our website, Ria, you could post the link to the citizenship page on our website. There's more details there, and I have videos. It's a more, in-depth overview, so you could check that out. And then, of course, you're always welcome to schedule an appointment. I can speak with you in private, but Ria can throw that link in for you to check that out. And Ria, I don't know if you can do that you can do that on YouTube, so Sal can see that citizenship page. Okay. You're going through the I-130 process, 18 months until decision. Your wife is in the DR, you're in the US. Can her trying to visit with a visa affect our I-130 case? So, that's a really interesting question. Would there be a direct impact to your case? No, not necessarily, because a visitor visa for another individual is a completely separate matter. Of course, when daughter goes to apply for a tourist visa, she should be 100% honest in that application and reasons for wanting to come and visit. Tourist visas are difficult to obtain just in general because they're discretionary, which means immigration can decide whether or not they want to approve it they don't have to really give a reason. That's what makes tourist visas hard. So yes, it's definitely possible. She should be honest. I don't see that when I have clients ask me that, I don't see that there would be a direct negative impact on the case. Again, I don't know all of the specifics of your, relationship, immigration history, on all of that. But, typically it would not have a direct negative impact, but always honesty is the best policy. So hopefully that helps. All right. Okay. And I'm actually going to go back to this individual who had a question about the I-601A, right, for the provisional waiver. And so you were thinking along the lines of, can we minimize risks of deportation while the case is pending? Yes. We work with our clients to help mitigate risks in every area to get you to the finish line to be able to process that provisional waiver. There are options depending on how long you've been in the U.S. and your immigration history, that if you were to have contact with immigration, there are ways to cancel or to stop that deportation through something called cancellation of removal. So we educate and talk with our clients about that, especially clients who are going through a provisional waiver. We help them be prepared for that situation, how to navigate when you're, if in the event that you're detained, knowing your rights, all of that. So yes. We can definitely help you to minimize those risks and get you to the finish line. That's our goal. So yes. Great. Very welcome. All right. Let's see where I'm at. Betty, you're wanting to know about DOJ and whether there's been a significant reduction of immigration officers that process visas. So this administration definitely has been looking for ways to cut immigration officers and staff, and there was talk about closing certain consular posts and things like that. There have been no official reports directly from the Department of State. They say that everything is processing normally, and yeah, I mean, that's where we're at right now. I know there's a lot of rumors. There have not been any specific announcements from the Department of State. And even before this administration and Doge, it was really a situation where we need more immigration officers even before 2025 to process cases, because there are wait times, for example, for waiver cases that are taking more than 3 years. And then there are certain consular posts that come to mind, top of mind for me as my clients, and they're processing through Nairobi, Kenya, for example. I mean, waiting, and Lagos, Nigeria, waiting like over a year for an interview after you've waited almost, over a year and a half for the petition is insane. And so that was the wait times pre-2025. There have not been any official announcements from the Department of State about staff cutting. There's been a lot of rumors. It's possible. And yeah, I mean, reaching out, I say that a lot, reaching out to your representatives, anyone who's going through an immigration process. You can make something called a congressional inquiry. You find your representative online. You can find who your 2 senators are and your congressional representative, and you can reach out to them. It's called liaising with or assistance with a federal agency, and letting them know how the immigration process, these wait times, all of it is impacting your life, and asking for them to advocate for changes in policies and hiring and training more officers. So that's the part that we can control. So hopefully all of you do that. It really does make a difference if all of us do that together. All righty, let's see who's next. Okay. Jose, it's so great to see you. I know you're waiting so long for your petition to be approved. So you have 2 we's. That was what was giving me a tongue tie here. We filed and opened the account for the NVC. Great. Now waiting for the notice, then interview. Okay. So I assume you mean you pay the visa fees at the NVC, and then you uploaded all required documents and completed the online application, and then waiting for an interview, right? Is what I'm understanding. So Jose, and actually Ria, can you, Ria, I think the video would have been like last week, a week or 2 ago. Can you post the video for everyone that I made talking about an interview estimator tool? It was a short. And Jose, you'll want to check that out. But basically, there's a tool now that was recently released by the Department of State. So really great news. It's always fun to be able to give good news to folks. So this tool allows you to take your documentarily qualified date. So like Phil and Ann had mentioned, they're documentarily qualified. So that means they're in line for an interview. So when you receive the notice from NVC that you're documentarily qualified, you can use this estimator tool to see what documentarily qualified date they're scheduling for interviews and get an idea of when you can anticipate an interview. I can't say exactly. Usually it's a few months for our clients who are processing in Colombia specifically. But yeah, you can use that tool. It's IV tool interview estimator, and you put in your consular post and it tells you. So Ria will throw that in there. Okay, she did. So check that out, Jose. That will help you. So Gloria, and good morning to you as well. Your spouse is in another country. You've been filing taxes as single because he's never been to the US. Would it negatively impact our case? Not necessarily. There are ways that you can include a spouse who lives abroad on your tax returns by obtaining an individual tax identification number. So if you have an accountant, you can speak with him or her about that. Whether or not it would negatively impact your case, I assume you're going through a spouse visa. So that's a little different. Because you are living apart. For adjustment of status cases, when you're living together, that's a huge issue, right? But when you're living apart, that can be expected. Immigration, expects that. So yes. So I would definitely check with your accountant, though, if you want to be able to file them, jointly. There can be options. I'm not a tax expert, but I know enough that I can guide you, and that would be my advice. But I wouldn't. Don't sweat it. Don't stress if you haven't been able to. That's a good question. So Doc Benson, great to have you here. So she came on a K-1 visa and has a photocopy of her vaccination. You mean the DS worksheet with the vaccinations. Does she need to submit a medical exam with just the vaccination filled out, or how does the government have the? Oh, and I think I saw you in the comments. You said you meant records, that she turned it in at the airport. So immigration, the Department of State. So when you interview abroad in USCIS, they do share file. It's you have one, or she has one complete what they call a file, alien file, and all of those records should be in there. So the medical clinic usually will send those records electronically to the consular post, or there's a sealed envelope, but that should all go in the file. So when you're filing for your green card or adjustment of status, the vaccination worksheet is what you need to provide. It's not necessary in some cases. In some cases, if not all vaccination requirements were completed. So if a doctor said, they didn't have a vaccine, or if an applicant refused a certain vaccine that day for whatever reason, if the vaccination worksheet indicates that all of the vaccination requirements weren't completed, then another medical exam does have to be done. But yes, and you submit the vaccination worksheet, and immigration should have the records from the medical exam in the file. Sometimes, a civil surgeon that did the medical exam may have not checked a box, or for whatever reason, and every once in a while after, you go to the green card interview, the officer will give you a paper, and at that time they'll tell you they'd like you to get an updated medical exam. But there's no reason to go through all of that, and only if the officer give you a request to go and get that done. All right, so hopefully that helps answer your question. Okay, let's see. I can do a couple more questions here. So about vaccination requirements, is it possible to continue to get the remaining vaccinations in the US? Thank you. You're very welcome. It is in some cases possible. So if a vaccine is part of a series and they administer vaccine 1 at your medical exam abroad, the doctor will typically give you a document or tell you need to complete the other part of the series in the US. And so that's exactly what I was talking about with Doc Benson's question, is that on the vaccination worksheet, if it's a fiance visa, on the vaccination worksheet, there'll be an indicator that you need to go and get that other vaccine in the series when you enter the US. And then for spouse visas, it's a little different, because the spouse visas, you're entering the US as a green card holder, but even in those situations, at the medical exam for spouse visas, they'll let you know, hey, when you get to the US, you should get this vaccine and complete that. And then you should do that and keep records that you did. So it's very common for that to happen. So your biometrics as parents done in Boston, how much more time for a decision? Well, I'm not sure. That will depend on a lot of things, including case type, category, all of that. If it's an adjustment of status application, the best thing that you can do is check the USCIS processing times tool and get estimates of wait times for the different forms there. But wait, if it's an adjustment of status, one of the first questions I had here today was about adjustment of status wait times, and on average, you're looking at about a year. But again, I don't know that your case type, so I can't say that definitively. So, but definitely check the USCIS processing times tool. That's a good place to get an idea, an estimate. So you're waiting for your adjustment of status case, and you were told an interview will not be needed. What's my take on this? Well, I'm not sure who told you that. I mean, there could be a potential that an interview is not needed, since I don't know the specifics of your case. But in general, since April, we've really seen that all adjustment of status cases are being scheduled for an interview, no exceptions. So USCIS policy manual says that officers have the discretion or the authority, if they think that a case is solid, there's tons of bona fide or relationship evidence. Generally, immigration history is clean. An officer could decide, they have the discretion to decide to waive the interview out of efficiency. So we're not having that officer spend time at an interview where they could just approve the case on paper. So that is still the policy the written policy, I should say, in the policy manual, but we've definitely seen a shift in this administration wanting more vetting of applications. So that has in turn resulted in everyone being scheduled for interviews. And I've been practicing immigration law for well over a decade now. And there's definitely been times immigration it's a fickle beast, it's a political beast. So it's it changes and ebbs and flows. And there's been times in my career where waiving of interviews was done more liberally. Then there are times where everyone, has to be at an interview. And then there's been times where it's just kind of been a mix. And now we're really seeing a shift back to everyone having an interview. So, I mean, is it possible that you could get an interview waiver? We've had a few, recently in May, but in general, those were, cases filed over a year ago. So maybe yours is one of those that's going to be able to sneak in under one of those final cases that won't have an interview. But I would prepare, we're preparing our clients that the interview is more likely. So, but good luck. Good luck with your case. So why is the waiver for vaccinations the same as forgiveness, or is it? Yes. The waiver application is the same as a waiver of forgiveness. The reason immigration likes to use one form for multiple purposes. So it doesn't mean that just because it's the same form or same application that you're having to ask for forgiveness, right? For not getting vaccines. The waiver form, the I-601 waiver form, has tons of different reasons why a person would need to request this waiver. And so it's not always a waiver of forgiveness. It can be a waiver of a requirement, like the vaccine requirement. So they just are consolidating rather than have 20 different waiver applications. They consolidate it all into one. So, but just know that, yeah. And that's a good point, Lisa. USCIS seems to always be hiring. Yes. So we've definitely seen the USA Gov jobs that they're always hiring immigration officers, and they definitely need to hire even more. They made a concerted effort after the pandemic to hire and reduce wait times. And I will say they were successful in some areas, not all, like the spouse visa I-130. That's outrageous. That needs to be shortened. But they definitely had some success in some of the applications like naturalization and work permits and fiance visa cases. So they have done hiring, and they said even when they hire, it takes about really 2 years, I think was what a USCIS supervisor told me. It takes about 2 years really to get that person fully integrated and really taking a lot of the burden off of the other officers who are adjudicating, which makes sense. Someone has to go through training for months. They have to shadow. Then they start to receive their own caseload. Cases start to shift, and then we see the results of that. So yes, I would say, yes, they are always hiring and need more, right? There's lots and lots of applications to be reviewed. All right, I'm going to grab one more question. Make sure. Okay, Doc. Okay, yep, Doc Benson, you're very welcome. Glad that was helpful. Okay. Yes, you're welcome. All right. Can you tell me currently the situation about spouse visas? We were waiting past 20 months and we still didn't receive an approval. Even my wife is a USC and we did upgrade our case. So I'm guessing maybe you filed when spouse was a lawful permanent resident, and then she became a United States citizen and you notified immigration to change your category. I'm just guessing here. I think that's what you mean. So it's important definitely to understand that if you're a lawful permanent resident petitioning for your spouse, it's a much, much, much longer wait time than a US citizen petitioning for a spouse. If your wife is now a US citizen, oh, I don't think you put in, okay, I just want to make sure you didn't have any other comments there. If your wife is a US citizen now and you did notify immigration, my question would be, have they confirmed in any way that your petition has been updated? Contacting USCIS by phone is always a little bit of a rodeo, and to get past the robot. And then the person you speak with is not an immigration officer, but you could try to make sure that was received. You could contact them and see if they can confirm. There. My phone is going off, even though I had it turned off. I would contact immigration and see if you can confirm that your spouse's naturalization certificate was, received, and that the case can be updated. You can also make an inquiry, a congressional inquiry, with one of your state senators or congressional representatives, see if they can help you liaise with USCIS and ensure that the case has been updated to reflect your spouse as a U.S. citizen. And as always, if you need assistance with that, you're welcome to reach out to the office, and I'd be happy to meet with you in private. Okay, you got a 221G from Mumbai, India for a K1 visa. What can I do next? And what can it be? I got the 221G because of the way my interview went. You provided proof. Yeah, so on the 221G, it depends. It can be for a lot of different things. Sometimes they need to request more information. Sometimes they need to do background checks. Sometimes it's because you didn't provide a required document. So this is something where they should have given you a paper with instructions or information on it. And if you need help interpreting or deciphering that paper and your next steps, this would be something I can speak with you about in private. But they should have given you a paper, and they should have explained to you what were going to be the next steps in the process. You can always reach out to the embassy and ask for additional details. Sometimes it can take them a while to send you an email with what it is that they need, depending on the reason for the 221G. Sometimes they need to do research. Sometimes they need to finish a background check. So it can be a lot of different things, but that would be what I would do. You should read that notice. You can reach out to the embassy, and if you need additional help, you're welcome to schedule an appointment. We can talk in private. All right. Your fiance is in the Philippines, has a son that is 20 by the time your fiance gets the interview. He may be 21, who knows, maybe even 22. Is it based on the application date? So if you're in this situation, if you have an attorney, you need to have them help you to get this case moved through immediately. Because for a fiance visa case, if there are children who are under 21, those children need to come to the US on the visa and file for adjustment of status before 21. So there's a Child Status Protective Act, but that will not protect any children who turn 21 while outside the US waiting for that visa. So yes, we've helped couples in this situation where there's a child who's close to 21 to push that case through. We have a lot of different techniques to get the case through, including expedites, but it is something that if you're that close to the line, we need to get that case expedited, get that case through, get an interview, and get both your fiance and stepchild here before age 21. So I'm glad you're asking that question, because that's a really important one. They need to enter before age 21. All right. We got through all the questions here today. So that's awesome. That's a big win. And congratulations to everybody who has received, approvals and documentarily qualified and all of that good stuff. Hang in there if you're going through an immigration process. Take care of your mental health. Take care of each other. You will get to the finish line. It was lovely to spend today with all of you. If you need support, check out that resource center that Ria put in the comments and that's below, and have an amazing rest of your week. Best of luck with your cases. Take care, everyone. Bye.